Mom's birthday. We knocked and waited. My dad finally opened the door and said, "Today isn't the right day for your energy." I just whispered, "Okay." Took my son's hand and walked away. 20 minutes later, my parents yelled. I felt something break inside me when my father looked straight at me and said that I should be grateful that anyone still spoke to me, considering how I had grown up. And then my mom, louder than necessary, yelled across the room, "Don't let her go," as if I was some kind of animal trying to escape. That was the moment. The exact second when I realized I wasn't going to try anymore. It all started earlier that evening when I walked into the house with something I had been saving up for over 6 months. I hadn't told anyone. Not because I wanted to surprise them, but because I knew they didn't expect anything special from me. They never did. Especially not after I became a single mother. That label stuck to me like gum on the bottom of my shoe, and they never missed an opportunity to remind me of it. My brother was already sitting at the table, talking loudly and acting like he owned the place. He always does that. Mom barely glanced at me when I walked in. She gave me her usual look and said, "You look tired." I didn't even take off my coat. I was silent throughout the entire dinner. I didn't respond to comments about my life, my job, or how I was raising my son. My father asked if I had finally started dating again or if I was still waiting for my son's father to come back. My brother laughed. My mother just nodded, as if agreeing with every word. That gift, the one they never asked about, the one they never noticed in my bag, I kept in my bag the whole time. It was a set of gold jewelry. Real gold. Nothing flashy. Just beautiful, heavy, and expensive, which made me a little uncomfortable when I paid for it with my card. But I thought maybe it would make her see me again. The way she saw me before I became the person they prefer to talk about rather than talk to. After dinner, when the conversation turned again to what a hard lesson life had been for me, I got up. Mom yelled for me not to go. Dad stayed where he was and said maybe it was for the best. So I left. I didn't slam the door. I didn't cry in the car. I drove 2 blocks, parked, and sat silently for a minute. Then I took the jewelry out of my bag, opened the box, and photographed it on the passenger seat. The light from the street lamp made it sparkle. I sent the photo to the family chat with one line, "You didn't even see what I brought her." Then I turned off my phone. When I turned it on the next morning, everything started to unravel. The next morning, I woke up to 37 missed calls. 11 from my mom. 8 from my dad. The rest were text messages, voice messages, and 2 from my brother with nothing but question marks. The group chat exploded overnight. It started with my mom, "Where did you get this?" Then, "Was this for me?" Then, "Mary, this is for a child, come back and give it to me, we didn't know." My dad responded with one of his classic sayings, "That's not how grown women behave." Then a voice message came against a backdrop of shouting. My mom was clearly crying, my dad was telling her to calm down, and my brother was repeating, "She's not answering, she's not answering." I didn't respond. I wasn't going to. I spent the morning as if nothing had happened. I took my son to kindergarten, bought coffee, came home, and carefully put the gift box in the closet. I didn't touch it. At 8 p.m. that evening, I heard a knock on the door. It was them. My father and brother. They both stood there as if they were carrying out some kind of mission. My brother was unusually quiet, and my father got straight to the point. He said I had no right to leave like that. That I had disgraced my mother. That it could have been a wonderful family moment, and I ruined it because of my anger. I stood in the doorway with my arms crossed and didn't say a word. Then my brother muttered that maybe I should go back and give her the gift so she would calm down. Then I laughed. I didn't even try to hide it. I told them to get off my porch. My father tried again, asking if I really wanted everything to end so badly because of a misunderstanding. I said there was no misunderstanding. They had made it clear how they felt about me. So I let them get in the car without saying a word. They stood there for a minute, as if waiting for me to change my mind. When I didn't, they drove away. That was the last time I saw them before everything started to fall apart. 2 days later, I was folding laundry when the phone rang again. This time it wasn't my mom, my dad, or even my brother. It was my neighbor. I didn't answer. Then the phone rang again. Same number. On the 3rd ring, I answered, mostly out of curiosity. It was Mrs. Kellerman from across the street. She sounded upset. She said she didn't want to interfere, but she thought I should know that my brother had been in a car accident that afternoon. Nothing serious, but the car was wrecked. She said she had seen them arrive in her husband's car a few minutes earlier. My mother turned pale. My dad was yelling into the phone. She said she heard my mom asking her for my address. I thanked her and hung up. 20 minutes later, they arrived. My brother was limping a little. My father was red with anger. And my mom stood a few steps away from them, like a ghost. I didn't open the door. I spoke through them. My father started calmly, asking if they could come in and talk. Then came the explanation. The insurance wouldn't cover the damage. They were barely making ends meet as it was. The accident wasn't his fault. Someone ran a red light, and they needed help, just a little, just this once. Then my brother spoke up. He said he understood why I was upset. That it wasn't about the gift, but about respect, and that yes, they had been strict with me. But he needed a car to get to work. Could I at least vouch for him? Or lend him some money until things settled down? Finally, my mother spoke, but I didn't understand everything. Her voice was trembling. She said something about karma and how maybe they had been too hard on me. Maybe they were wrong. I let them finish. Then I said I wasn't interested. That I didn't owe them anything. That I hoped they would find a solution, but not with my help. My father muttered something about me turning my back on my family. I replied that it wasn't the first time someone had done that. And then I watched them get into the neighbor's car, heads bowed, without saying a word. 3 days passed. No calls. No messages. Not a single knock on the door. The silence came so quickly that it was almost eerie. After weeks of noise, insults, demands, accusations, they seemed to have simply evaporated. I thought they were regrouping. That someone would try again. Maybe my brother, because he was the one who had something to lose. But the longer the silence lasted, the more I realized that they weren't coming back with apologies. They were backing off because they didn't know what else to take from me. And I wasn't offering anything. That Saturday, I went out to get some groceries. At the end of the aisle, near the cash register, I saw Mrs. Kellerman again. She waved at me and then looked back as if she wanted to tell me a secret. She leaned over and said that they had been fighting. That every time she went out on the porch, she heard shouting from across the street. My mom blamed my dad. My dad blamed my brother. My brother yelled that I had turned into a cold, vindictive person. That none of this would have happened if I had just played along with them at dinner. I didn't say anything. I just nodded, paid for my groceries, and left. But when I got home, I sat in the car for a minute and thought about those words. Played their game. They thought that's what I was supposed to do. To endure. To keep quiet. To accept that they could drag me through the mud, and I would still show up with a smile and a gift. They didn't just underestimate me. They completely erased the part of me that fought for herself. The part that learned to survive without their approval. The part that raised a child, built a life, and still managed to love more deeply than any of them. They didn't know me at all. And now, for the first time in many years, I've come to terms with that. On Monday morning, I woke up to a message from my mother. Just one sentence. We need to talk before it's too late. No explanation. No follow-up. I didn't read it. Around noon, I received another message. This time from my father. This isn't about the car anymore. Please. It was the first time they had given up the game. No reproaches, no sarcasm, no hidden jabs disguised as advice. Just a plea. But I still didn't respond. Then, around 4 p.m., my brother called. I didn't answer, so he sent a message. Dad's having heart problems. His chest hurts. Don't ignore it. For a moment, I almost replied. Not because I wanted to help him, but because something inside me still trembled at the thought of real danger. But then I remembered everything. The dinners, the mockery, the way they pushed me away as if I were a guest in my own family. And I realized what I hadn't even admitted to myself. They only came to me when they needed something. It was never about love. Never about respect. It was about access. I was a backup option. A wallet. A babysitter. A punching bag. So I turned off my phone, put it face down, and focused on dinner with my son. No one came to my door that night. No one begged. There were no more calls. They finally understood. And for the first time in my life, I didn't wait for an apology. A week later, I saw my dad at the pharmacy. He didn't notice me. He was moving slowly and looked thinner than usual. My mom wasn't with him. I assumed she was still at home, probably still bitter, still replaying that dinner in her head, trying to understand how everything had slipped out of her control. I didn't say anything. I just watched from the next aisle. It wasn't satisfying, just a sense of closure. I left and didn't look back. That weekend, I received a letter. Handwritten, folded in 3, with no return address, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. My mother's. She wrote that they were disappointed with how things turned out, that it was sad to see a family fall apart, but that they were moving on and hoped I would too. No apologies. She didn't even mention the gift. That was the last time any of them contacted me. They don't talk to me anymore. Not on holidays. Not on birthdays. Not even through my brother, who is still trying to fix his car with the help of his cousin in Texas. I heard from a neighbor that my mother tells people that I've changed. That I'm not the same. She's right. I'm not. Because the old me would have come that night, swallowed all the hurt, handed over the jewelry box with a nervous smile, and waited for their approval like a hungry dog. But the woman who walked out of that house that night, she's not begging to be noticed. She's leaving the gold in the closet where it belongs. And she's closing the door for good. 3 weeks later it was quiet. 21 days. No calls, no messages, no guilt, no drama. Only peace. I started sleeping better. I even stopped checking my phone in the morning, as if my body had finally forgotten what panic was. But that Tuesday, there was something in the mailbox. A small white envelope, no stamp, no sender's name. Just my name, written in large letters. Mary, as if someone was trying to make sure it wasn't recognized. Inside was a photograph. At first glance, it was no different from any other. Blurry, poorly lit, probably taken with an old phone. But something about it made my stomach clench. It was a photograph of a dresser. My mother's dresser. I recognized the mirror, the damaged ceramic angel figurine she kept, the old jewelry box she let me play with when I was 5. And in the middle was a jewelry box. It was exactly like mine. The same velvet, the same shape, almost the same size. But it wasn't mine. I immediately went to my closet. I opened the drawer. My box was there. I opened it. Everything was in its place. The necklace. The bracelet. The earrings. Gold. Real. Untouched. So I turned the photo over. And then I saw it. 5 words, written in neat, uneven handwriting. She bought one for herself. At first, I didn't know what to think. But later that evening, curiosity got the better of me. I went on Facebook, to one of those local pages where people post ads for baked goods, missing cats, and other things like that. It took me less than 5 minutes to find it. Someone had tagged my mom in the photo. It was from some small church dinner or charity event. She was sitting at a table next to Deborah, one of her friends who used to act like I didn't exist, and she was smiling. A real smile, with teeth and everything. And around her neck was a copy. Not costume jewelry. Not a borrowed item. She went out and bought herself an almost exact replica of the gift she never received. She was showing it off as if nothing had happened. As if I had never sent that photo. As if it had always been hers. And suddenly the silence was no longer peaceful. Because someone close to her had taken that photo. Someone who had recently been in that house. Someone who didn't like what they saw. They wanted me to find out. And they made sure I did. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was angry. But because now I knew something else. Whatever was going on, it wasn't over. Someone was digging up the past.